Behind her, Mason dragged himself upright, pipe broken but still sharp at the tip. His eyes were wide, hollow, but a flicker of fury burned through the madness. He staggered forward and jammed the jagged end into one of the tendrils coiled around Rourke's leg. The thing howled, a guttural vibration that split their ears. The tendril flailed, slamming Mason into the wall, but it loosened its grip long enough for Rourke to wrench free. Ilara's rifle clicked empty. She hurled it aside, pulling her sidearm, unloading every round she had left into the writhing mass. Each shot drove the beast back an inch, black fluid dripping thick onto the tunnel floor. The air stank of burning flesh and gunpowder, the roar shaking the marrow of their bones. At last, with a shudder that rattled the walls, the massive shadow recoiled into the dark, dragging its wounded coils with it. The breathing faded, slow and heavy, until only the rasp of their own lungs remained. Ilara collapsed to her knees, sidearm clattering from her hands. Mason slumped beside her, blood streaking his temple. Rourke leaned against the wall, chest heaving, every breath a rasp. None of them dared to believe it was gone. The tunnel was quiet, except for their ragged breaths. The stink of ichor clung to the air, burning their lungs with every inhale. Ilara collapsed against the wall, pressing a shaking hand over her chest. Her arms trembled from the recoil of firing, her shoulder bruised raw. For a moment, she let her eyes close, though the dark pressed too close behind her lids. Mason slid down beside her, smeared in blood and black fluid. He laughed once, sharp, broken, then winced, clutching his ribs. "It's not dead," he rasped. "It never dies." Rourke coughed, spitting red onto the tunnel floor. His voice was a low growl. "Then next time, we don't just wound it. Next time, we finish it." Ilara turned her head toward him. His chest rose and fell, like every breath was a battle, but his eyes were still burning. Angry, alive. She wanted to believe him. Instead, her gaze dropped to Mason. He rocked gently where he sat, whispering to himself, voice too soft to catch. The tremor in his hands didn't stop. Ilara's throat tightened. The ship wasn't just breaking their bodies, it was peeling them apart from the inside. For a moment, all three just sat there, side by side in the narrowing dark, too spent to move. Yet knowing the ship would never leave them still for long. And somewhere deeper ahead, the faintest sound carried through the walls. Not a roar this time, not the pulse. Laughter. The laughter echoed faintly through the walls, thin, brittle, like glass cracking. It wasn't loud, but it carried, weaving through the tunnel until it felt like it was coming from everywhere at once. Ilara's blood ran cold. "That's not possible." Mason's head snapped up, his lips curled into a trembling smile, eyes wide and glassy. "It's him. Cade's laughing at me." Rourke grabbed him by the collar, shaking hard. "No one's laughing, Mason. It's the ship. Do you hear me? It's the ship." But even Rourke's voice cracked at the edges. The laughter swelled for a moment, climbing higher, then broke into silence, leaving only the drip of condensation and the beat of their own hearts. Ilara's stomach turned. "It wants us to follow it." Rourke's jaw flexed, but he pushed ahead, rifle steady. "Fine, then we go see what's so funny." Mason stumbled after them, muttering under his breath, still smiling faintly, like the sound had dug under his skin. The tunnel bent downward, veins in the walls glowing faintly like a path marked just for them. And with each step, the silence thickened, pressing in until at last the laughter came again, louder now, spilling from a vast chamber waiting below. The tunnel spat them into a vast, hollow chamber. The walls arched high into darkness, slick with veins that pulsed faintly. Their rhythm too steady, too human. And from somewhere deep within the shadows, the laughter came again. It wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. Thin, broken chuckles echoed across the chamber, bouncing back on themselves until it felt like dozens of voices were laughing all at once. Ilara froze, her stomach turning. The sound was wrong, too close to human, too far from it at the same time. Rourke swept his rifle in a slow arc, knuckles bone white. "Show yourself," he snarled, though his voice cracked under the weight of the echo. The laughter cut off. Silence pressed in, heavy. Then a voice spoke. Not laughter now, speech, smooth, confident, weaving perfectly through their comms. "Elara." Her blood ran cold. It was her brother's voice again, clearer this time, calmer. "Why do you keep running from me?" Mason lurched forward, eyes wide, his own voice breaking. Cade, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Elara," the voice again, closer now, filling every crack of the chamber. "It's safe here. Just come closer. You don't have to fight anymore." Rourke swore under his breath, shaking his head. "It's inside us, all of us." The veins in the walls glowed brighter, the pulse quickening, and in the glow, shapes stirred, figures peeling themselves from the walls like shadows given flesh. They weren't strangers. They were familiar. Faces from their pasts. Friends, family, people they had loved. The chamber filled with them, dozens of figures stepping forward, their laughter overlapping into a chorus that froze the blood in their veins. The chamber filled with familiar faces. Some smiled warmly, some stretched their arms wide in welcome. All of them laughed, the sound weaving into a chorus that rattled in the crew's skulls. Elara squeezed her eyes shut, whispering through gritted teeth. "They're not real. They're not real." Rourke spat, teeth bared, rifle snapping toward the figures. "Hold your ground." His voice was iron, but even his arms trembled. Then Mason stumbled forward. His eyes were wide, wet with tears, his face cracked open with grief. "Cade, he's here. He's right here. Don't you see him?" Elara lunged, grabbing his arm. "Mason, stop. It's not him. It's never him." But Mason ripped free, staggering toward the nearest figure, peeling itself from the wall. It was Cade's face, pale, soft, smiling faintly, as if no horror had ever touched him. "Mason," the figure whispered, voice gentle, forgiving. "It's all right. I forgive you." Mason sobbed, reaching out. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean—" The figure opened its arms wide. Elara screamed, rushing forward. Too late. Mason stepped into the embrace. The figure's arms snapped shut like a vice. Tendrils tore free from its back, plunging through his chest with a wet crack. Mason's cry cut short, blood blooming across his suit as the creature pulled him tight against itself. His eyes found Elara's in the flickering dark. The smile was still on his lips. Relief, peace. Then the light left them. The laughter roared louder, echoing through the chamber as Mason's body went limp, swallowed into the wall. Elara dropped to her knees where Mason had stood only seconds before. The blood smeared across the floor was already being absorbed into the ship's veins, black tendrils curling hungrily around it. Her hands trembled as she reached toward the wall, toward the place where Mason had been pulled under. But there was nothing left. Only smooth flesh and a faint, wet pulse beneath it. "No." The word broke in her throat, small, helpless. "No, please." Rourke stood rigid beside her, rifle clenched tight, his face a mask of fury. But his eyes betrayed him, red, raw, locked on the spot where Mason had vanished. He swallowed hard, jaw working, as if holding back words that would tear him apart. Elara's chest heaved. He was ours. He was one of us. The laughter still echoed, softer now, taunting, feeding on her grief. It threaded through the walls like a lullaby, cruel and tender all at once. Rourke finally spoke, voice low, jagged. He chose it. It didn't take him. He walked into it. Elara whipped her head toward him, tears blazing in her eyes. "You think that makes it easier?" His gaze held hers, hard, but his voice cracked at the edge. "No. It makes it worse." They stood there in the echo of Mason's death, both broken in different ways. Elara with guilt twisting in her chest, Rourke with anger burning in his gut. And all around them, the ship pulsed faster, veins glowing brighter, as if Mason's surrender had fed it, made it stronger. The walls of the laughter chamber pulsed faster, veins glowing a furious red, as though the ship had fed well and wanted more. Mason was gone, but his absence lingered like a wound. Elara wiped her face with a trembling hand, forcing herself upright. Every step forward felt like betrayal, as if leaving the chamber meant leaving Mason behind. But staying meant letting the ship finish them too. Rourke didn't look back. His jaw was locked, his grip iron on his rifle. He moved like a man running on rage alone, every step heavy with purpose. The tunnel ahead narrowed, glowing faintly with veins that guided them downward. The air thickened with heat, the stench of copper and rot nearly unbearable. Elara whispered, almost to herself, "Where is it leading us?" Rourke's voice was a rasp. "The core, the part it doesn't want us to see." The walls shuddered as though in answer. Panels split open above, ichor dripping in thick ropes across their suits. The corridor itself groaned, narrowing, forcing them closer together as it funneled them down. Each step vibrated through the soles of their boots, thump, 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 like the beat of a colossal heart. And ahead, through the narrowing dark, a glow seeped out. Pale, sickly, alive. They were being driven toward the ship's truest self, the place where everything ended. The tunnel narrowed until Elara and Rourke had to turn sideways, their shoulders scraping the slick walls. Every breath rasped through their helmets, the air hot, sour, burning their throats. The glow ahead brightened with each step, pulsing faintly, steady as a heartbeat. Elara's chest clenched. "It wants us here." Rourke didn't answer. His silence was worse than words, the weight of it pressing heavier than the ship's walls. The path bent downward again, spiraling. The veins in the walls thickened, pumping black ichor in sluggish waves, feeding deeper into the dark. Each pulse rattled their bones, syncing with their heartbeats until it felt like their bodies belonged to the ship. Elara stumbled once, her boots sliding in the slick, but Rourke caught her arm. His grip was strong, but his face was pale, eyes bloodshot. He was running on fumes, on rage alone. The air thickened further, stinking of copper and rot. Elara gagged, pressing her sleeve to her mouth. The walls shuddered as if in laughter, the sound echoing faintly down the spiral. And then they saw it. The tunnel opened into a cavernous space, vast and suffocating. At its center loomed the ship's core, not just a heart this time, but a massive, pulsing mass of flesh and steel fused together, rising like a tower into the darkness. Veins spread outward from it like roots, disappearing into the walls, feeding everything. At its base, black fluid pooled thick, rippling faintly. And within that pool, shapes stirred, half-formed bodies twitching in the muck, waiting to rise. The laughter came again, not from the walls this time, but from the core itself. Deep, resonant, filling every corner of the chamber. And threaded through it was Mason's voice. "Elara." She froze, stomach dropping into ice. The ship had not only taken him, it had become him. Elara. Her name rolled out of the core, layered and hollow. It wasn't Mason's voice anymore, not truly, but something that wore it like a mask. Her knees buckled, her throat seized with a sob. Rourke grabbed her arm, yanking her back. "That's not him. Do you hear me? It's not him." But the voice deepened, spreading through the cavern until the walls shook with it. "You left me. You killed me, and now you'll carry me forever." The pool at the core's base rippled, dozens of forms clawed upward, half-formed, dripping black ichor, faces flickering between strangers and people they loved. The laughter rose into a shriek. The chamber walls shuddered violently, tendrils exploded outward, crashing down around them like falling cables, slamming into the floor with bone-rattling force. The ground itself pulsed, buckling under their feet. Rourke raised his rifle, face twisted with rage. "It dies here." The core throbbed, towering above them, veins glowing hot, beating faster, louder, until it matched the hammer of their hearts. Tendrils whipped forward in a storm, and the floor split, spewing steam and ichor. Elara lifted her weapon, her voice breaking into a scream that was equal parts terror and defiance. The ship had stopped hiding. This was its true face. And it wanted them. The chamber shook, the heartbeat of the core thundering through the walls. Tendrils lashed down in a storm, striking with bone-breaking force. Rourke fired in bursts, the muzzle flash painting the walls, ichor spraying in black curtains. Each round tore chunks from the writhing coils, but more kept coming. One slammed into him, knocking him sprawling across the slick floor. "Elara!" he roared, coughing blood. "Hit the veins! Cut it off!" She spun, rifle rattling in her grip, firing into the massive roots that pumped ichor into the walls. Each shot made the chamber convulse, the laughter twisting into screams, Mason's voice, Cade's voice, her brother's voice, all of them screaming at once. Her knees buckled. "Stop, stop it," she sobbed, clutching her ears even as she kept firing. The ship pressed harder into her mind. Visions crashed through her, her brother's body lying still, Mason's blood on her hands, Rourke's face dead and pale. Each hallucination clawed at her chest, threatening to break her. "Elara," Mason's voice whispered, gentle now. "You can stop fighting, just come with me." She screamed, firing point blank into the pulsing mass. Black ichor exploded, burning across her suit. Rourke dragged himself upright, grabbing a fallen pipe, smashing it into another vein until his hands split. His voice tore from his throat, hoarse but unbroken. "We end it now, do you hear me? Now!" The core bellowed, the laughter turning to rage, the whole chamber collapsing inward. Tendrils wrapped around Rourke's torso, hauling him into the air, his rifle ripped from his grip. Elara lunged, grabbing his arm, screaming his name as the ship tried to claim him like it had Mason. Rourke's eyes locked on hers, fierce even through the pain. "Don't let it win. Burn it." The tendrils tightened, ribs cracking loud in the roar. The tendrils hoisted Rourke higher, his body jerking under the pressure. His ribs cracked again, sharp and sickening. He roared through the pain, eyes locked on Elara's. "Elara, do it." Her heart shattered, her hands shook on the weapon, every instinct screaming to pull him down, to save him. But the core loomed before her, pulsing faster, Mason's voice spilling out of it in a chorus of mockery and love. "Don't fight me, Elara. We can be whole again. Just let go." Her tears blurred the chamber. She saw Mason's smile, her brother's face, and Rourke, bleeding, breaking, yet still fighting. Her scream tore loose, raw and furious. She turned the barrel away from Rourke and leveled it at the heart. The core pulsed, tendrils flailing as though sensing what was coming. Elara fired. Round after round ripped into the massive, throbbing mass. Each impact exploded ichor across the chamber, the veins rupturing, black blood spraying like a storm. The laughter shrieked into rage, 1,000 voices howling at once. The tendrils around Rourke spasmed, snapping him to the floor like a rag doll. He groaned. Broken but alive. Elara emptied the magazine, then grabbed Rourke's fallen rifle, slamming round after round into the core until the chamber shook like it would tear itself apart. The heart split open, a geyser of black fluid erupting skyward, showering the cavern. The screams twisted into a single note, high and endless. Mason's voice breaking into silence. The walls convulsed, veins bursting, the ground heaving. The ship itself was dying. Elara fell to her knees, weapon clattering from her hands, her scream drowned by the roar of a collapsing world. The chamber split around them, the walls buckling like ribs cracking outward. Veins burst overhead, spraying ichor in long arcs. The ground heaved, throwing Elara onto her side, black fluid soaking into her suit. She scrambled to her knees, grabbing Rourke by the arm. His breaths came ragged, shallow, but his eyes were still burning. "Up!" she shouted over the roar. "We have to move." The core shrieked, a sound that split the air, half voice and half steel tearing. Mason's voice was there too, calling her name again and again, a plea and a curse all at once. Rourke coughed blood, forcing himself upright. "It won't. Let us go." The ground beneath them cracked wide, swallowing the twitching remains of the half-formed creatures. A rush of heat belched upward, the air thick with fire and smoke. Elara hauled him toward the nearest passage, but the walls convulsed, sealing off the tunnel in a slick sweep of flesh and steel. "No!" she screamed, slamming her fists against the wall. The chamber groaned louder, the whole ship folding inward, collapsing under its own wounded heartbeat. Through the smoke, another tunnel yawned open, a jagged split in the wall, shuddering as though resisting itself. Rourke leaned against her, coughing hard. "That's it. That's our way out." Elara didn't think. She threw his arm over her shoulders, dragging him toward the opening as the chamber came down around them, the ship's dying laughter chasing them into the dark. The tunnel shook as they stumbled through it, dragging each other forward. Panels buckled overhead, raining sparks and shrapnel. The veins that lined the walls burst one by one, spraying ichor that burned through fabric and skin alike. Ilara shoved Rourke ahead, her throat raw from screaming, "Keep moving!" Behind them, the chamber they'd fled collapsed in on itself with a thunderous roar, the core's laughter twisting into a howl of rage that followed them like fire. The corridor split open beneath their feet. Ilara yanked Rourke back just as the deck gave way, molten black fluid spewing upward in a geyser. The heat seared her skin even through the suit. The ship wasn't dying quietly. It was thrashing, tearing itself apart in violent convulsions. They sprinted down a side passage, every step jolting as the walls cracked inward, jagged steel teeth snapping shut inches behind them. One caught Ilara's sleeve, tearing it clean off. She didn't stop to look back. Ahead, faint light seeped from a breach in the hull, the promise of open space. Rourke staggered, falling to one knee. Ilara grabbed him under the arm, hauling him up with a cry. His lips were red with blood, his breath shallow, but his eyes locked on hers. "Don't stop. Not now." The walls heaved again. A bulkhead slammed down where they'd just been, sealing the corridor in a thunderous crash. The light ahead flickered brighter, closer. Ilara screamed with the last of her strength, dragging them both forward as the ship howled around them. They had seconds left. The light ahead grew brighter, cutting through the smoke and ichor. It wasn't the ship's glow, it was real. Cold. Clean. The void. Ilara dragged Rourke with everything she had left, her muscles screaming, her breath raw. The deck groaned beneath them, splitting open, veins bursting as the ship tried to swallow them one last time. A tendril whipped from the wall, striking across her back. She fell to her knees, teeth rattling, but didn't let go of Rourke. With a feral cry, she tore the sidearm from her belt, jamming it into the tendril and firing until the barrel clicked empty. It snapped back, shrieking. The path opened again. Rourke staggered beside her, one arm over her shoulder. His voice was a rasp, torn with pain. "Go, Ilara, go." She shook her head, tears streaking down her face. "Not without you, not now." The breach loomed closer, a jagged tear in the hull, stars glittering beyond, infinite and merciless. Wind howled through the crack, sucking at them, dragging them forward. Behind, the chamber collapsed in a tidal wave of steel and flesh, the ship shrieking its final rage. Ilara and Rourke threw themselves at the light, and the ship swallowed the rest of its own scream. The void swallowed them in silence. Ilara and Rourke tumbled through the breach, stars wheeling above like shards of glass scattered across an endless black sea. Their bodies spun, weightless, their ragged breaths loud in their helmets. Behind them, the ship convulsed. The hull collapsed inward, whole sections buckling and tearing, ichor venting into space in black streams that froze as glittering shards. The roar of its death was soundless here, but Ilara felt it in her bones. A final shudder, a final heartbeat, then nothing. They floated together, tethered only by Ilara's grip on Rourke's arm. His breaths came shallow, each one a fight. Blood smeared inside his visor, but his eyes still held hers, fierce and unbroken. "You did it," he rasped. Ilara shook her head, tears drifting as beads into the weightless dark. "We did." But even as she said it, Mason's face flashed in her mind, his smile in the chamber, his voice in the core. She knew she'd never forget the sound. The wreckage of the ship burned faintly behind them, a dying star swallowed by shadow. Ilara tightened her grip on Rourke, pulling them both toward the faint beacon of their shuttle drifting in the distance. Their bodies ached, their souls were torn, but they moved, not victorious, not whole, just alive. For now.